Hello and welcome to the Energy Resilience Lab. Our lab is dedicated to giving you the knowledge, skills, and the encouragement that you need to become resilient and to become energy independent. Today we'd like to get into a little bit larger energy storage system. Last week we talked about AirPods and their little charging case. This week I'd like to go into some information on power banks. So I have a few examples here, some small ones. So this one is a 8,000 milliamp hour power bank. When we get into power banks, a lot of companies like to qualify them with the number of amp hours that they have in the system. The problem with that is that every battery composition has a different nominal voltage, and so given the same amount of amp hours, you're going to get varying amounts of energy out of the system. So this one is the highest energy density. It's a lithium cobalt cell, which is commonly found in cell phones and other ultra small portable devices that need power, that are electronic. This one is 8,000 milliamp hours. The nominal voltage on the cell inside is 3.7 volts. And so if you are out in the market, if you're shopping for a power bank that you would like to use, either for hunting or maybe for executive travel or something like that, you want to find out how many watt hours it is capable of storing and providing back to you. That's going to be a better measure of what the system's going to be able to do for you. So this one, 8,000 milliamp hours. The other problem with this is cells. So they're using the milliamp hour rating on power banks because they want to use a very large number. So this one is 8 amp hours, so they say 8,000 milliamp hours because that sounds like a big number. This has approximately 30 watt hours, so that gives you about 2.5 charges on a phone, something like that. So this could power your phone for a few days, maybe 3 days if you're being very energy conserving, but always get to that watt hour actual energy storage rating. Don't just go for the milliamp hours or amp hours. So this one, 8,000 milliamp hours. Going on to the next one. So this one's a little bit bigger. This one is 27,000 milliamp hours, which is 99.9 watt hours. What's really critical with power banks is that you're able to use it where you're wanting to use it. And so if you have a power bank that's larger than 100 watt hours, you'd have to get clearance from the TSA and from the pilot that's flying the plane, transport that power bank with you as you're traveling. And so the limit is 100 watt hours. So this is 99.9, so it doesn't have to go through that clearance process. You're able to get it onto the plane and no one has to say yes or no if you can bring it or not. So being 27,000 milliamp hours, the nominal voltage on this I believe is 3.6, which gives you 99.9 watt hours. So this one is about 3 times the size of the smaller one. The other concern is inside of the power banks, they have different amounts of cells in series. So it's usually dependent on what you're powering. So this little system can power a laptop and it powers it at 20 volts. And so having a higher voltage battery pack in your system makes it easier to boost the voltage to power different systems. And so the first one I showed you is just the 3.7 volt cell, and then it's boosted to the 5 volts for a normal USB output to power devices. This one has to go all the way to 20 volts on the output, and so having a little higher voltage inside makes that more convenient and more efficient. So if you're truly talking about amp hours, the amp hours are independent of the number of cells that are in series, right? So if you have 3 cells in series, your amp hours in that pack are going to be just what that single cell is. So let's say like a small NMC 18650 would be about 2.6 amp hours. So if you have 3 of them in series, technically you only have 2,600 amp hours, but it's at the 11.1 volts, which still gives you the same amount of energy, but the number of amp hours, actual amps you can get out of the system, out of that battery pack, is less, but it's just because the voltage is doing more of the work. So if you have that same battery pack and you put the 3 cells in parallel, like the first power bank I showed you, then you multiply the amp hours together. So when you have a series circuit, the amps are the same. When you have a parallel circuit, the voltage is the same. So in the series circuit, the amps are the same, and there's 2.6 amp hours in the system. When you put them all in parallel, the voltage comes down to the 3.6, 3.7 nominal voltage, and that battery is now at 7.8 amp hours or 7,800 milliamp hours, because the amps are amplified and the voltage is held at the nominal voltage of one cell. So that's what makes it confusing sometimes with these power banks, because they'll have different variances in the numbers of cells in series and in parallel. And so to add them up, you really have to get in there and count all of the cells to figure out what the amp hour of the pack is, and the voltage of the pack. You have to count all the cells that are stacked in series. So normally some people that are selling products like this, they will just give you the amp hour rating assuming all the cells were in parallel. So normally when you're working with an energy storage company, they will bring all of the amp hours as if they were using the nominal voltage of the cell. So they'll assume that all of the cells are in parallel, and that's the amp hour rating that they'll give you. It can just get a little bit confusing, but once you know that, it's pretty simple to go through that. So this one's 27,000 milliamp hours. And then when you get up into the bigger systems like this, you would think maybe that it's double the energy or so, maybe 50% more of the energy of this other power bank, but it actually turns out that this one is the same amount of energy. So it's 99.9 watt hours, allowing you to take this through TSA and also onto the plane without any special requests. The difference is this one has an inverter in it that's very small that can power laptops and other small devices, whereas this one just has the high power PD output, which is a USB-C protocol for laptops. So you can power kind of the same power level of equipment, a little less in this case, but it gets you what you need. So your power bank can at least get the energy into your laptop. So those are the two systems. So this one is actually 31 amp hours to get the same energy of 99.9 watt hours. So that's why it can get a little bit complicated working maybe just on Amazon or somewhere. You need to look at how many watt hours is in the system, not just what the amp hours of the system are. So just to give you an idea, 31 amp hours, 27 amp hours, and same amount of watt hours. That usually comes from the cell nominal voltage. So this one is a lithium iron phosphate power bank, and this one is an NCA power bank. So there's NMC, NCA. They're used pretty much interchangeably. NCA is a little bit more prominent, at least in America, because Tesla uses some NCA variants in their system. And then lithium iron phosphate. So that one is 3.6 to 3.7 nominal voltage. This is 3.2 nominal volts. So that's why this cell needs to be larger, because if we're trying to get the watt hours of a cell, you multiply the nominal voltage, which is 3.2 in this case, by the amp hours, which is 31 amp hours. And then this one is 3.6 volts times the 27 amp hours to get to the watt hours. So it can be deceiving if they're just telling you how many amp hours there are in a system. Most people I don't think are trying to deceive you, but it's just good to know that you may want to get a little deeper or do some testing on the different systems before you purchase them to make sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. A lot of companies will also make it a little easier by giving you information as to how many times these systems can charge certain things. Like a phone has about 10 watt hours in it. So if you have a 100 watt hour power bank and you're using a USB output with efficiency and everything, you can probably charge it 8 to 10 times, because both the cell sizes in your phones vary and the efficiency can vary getting into the phone. So that can help a lot. If you just look at those, you can get an idea of how much it's going to be able to do. So that's how we go through power banks. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer your questions on this or do some testing if that's interesting to you guys. So please shout out in the comments, like and subscribe, and share with people that are also in the market looking for power banks. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you. Have a good day.